Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Very glad you're with us for the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. We have two good martinis for you today, as well as a definite bad martini. So, Jim, let's dig right into the first good martini. And that deals with sports, but not in a way that we normally talk about sports. We're not going to be grousing about the Jets and the Bears. We're going to be talking about the Chiefs. But the bigger issue is stadium financing. Everybody knows how much I love taxpayer-funded arenas and football facilities. We talked about Glenn Youngkin's plan to do that and move the Washington Wizards and the Capitals to Northern Virginia. I'm not usually a fan of Democratic obstructionism of the Youngkin agenda, but on that particular one, not crying too hard because they needed to come up with funding for it, which we were told was not going to come from state tax, but apparently on some level there needed to be, and it died, and now the Wizards and Caps are staying in D.C., and they're going to refurbish that arena. But that's not today's martini. This is from Kansas City, Missouri. ESPN, the future of the Royals and the Chiefs in Kansas City was thrown into question Tuesday night when residents of Jackson County, Missouri, where the city is, resoundingly voted down a sales tax measure that would have helped to fund a new downtown ballpark along with major renovations to Arrowhead Stadium, which is where the Chiefs play. Now, the Royals had pledged at least $1 billion from ownership for their project for a brand new ballpark district, which they thought would be a total of $2 billion in cost. Meanwhile, the Chiefs just won a massive overhaul of Arrowhead Stadium. They've committed $300 million in private money, and they say the whole thing is going to take $800 million. The guy from the Royals says, "We're deeply disappointed as we are steadfast in our belief that Jackson County is better with the Chiefs and the Royals." And maybe it is. I love Kansas City. I've only been there once, had a great time there. And obviously, things are going well for the Chiefs right now. The Royals won a World Series a little less than a decade ago. In most years, they tend to struggle. Jim, the idea that the Chiefs can only pony up $300 million to renovate their own stadium after I assume the amount of merchandise and all other sorts of revenue they've raked in with 3 Super Bowl wins in the last 5 years seems pretty much on the cheap. They're not going anywhere unless Clark Hunt wants to be the next Art Modell. And the idea that they're going to stay or leave based on a sales tax referendum is just a joke to me. So good for the people of Kansas City for not falling for the bait.
Well, before I go any further, I should mention I have not been to Kansas City, but I will be rectifying that this month. The 23rd, I'll be speaking at the Kansas City Public Library for the Show Me State Institute, talking about stuff in Ukraine, my recent trips, and state of the war there. So I look forward to it, and I think very highly of Kansas City. But my message to the Chiefs organization is, why don't you ask your friend Taylor for a loan if it's really that hard up for cash? Which I have a really hard time believing, not just because of the success of the team and the fact that every game is a sellout. And that stadium is, packed to the gills with everybody, and they're always known as one of the most enthusiastic, loyal, loud fan bases. I'm looking at Vivid Seats, and I know different ticket brokers will have different numbers for it, but currently, Kansas City Chiefs ticket prices start at $144 a piece with an average price of $234. I think you guys can afford to pay for your own. And that's before we get into the Travis Kelce jersey sales, which boosted because every Swiftie on the planet had to buy one.
Sure.
That's before, the pennants, the T-shirts, the caps, the scarves, all the stuff that they sell at the concession stands. That's before. I don't know what the beer prices are, but I've been to games at MetLife Stadium. Beers are not cheap. Food is not cheap. It's cafeteria food that is, generally of really middling quality, but you're paying gourmet prices. Give me a break. Now, Kansas City Royals, yeah, maybe attendance is probably lower there, but it's not like it's cheap to go to a baseball game either. So, no, you and I have a blanket policy of never liking taxpayer dollars going to any sports stadium. The one or two exceptions I will make is that if you're going to build a new stadium, often you need new infrastructure around it, sometimes a new highway interchange or ways for people to get to the stadium. I'm okay with localities paying it in a bit more to help, those sorts of things. And I remember back from what I still call it the MCI Center to date myself. It was a Verizon, USA. It's
Capital One now.
Capital One. All right. It's always a bank company or an insurance company or something. The arena in D.C., I believe the city donated the land, but Abe Poland, the owner of the then Bullets and Capitals, paid for the stadium itself. That struck me as a pretty fair deal considering what was going on across most of the country. But no. And so good for you, voters of this corner of Kansas City. Shame on you, team owners. You can afford this. You're going to be just fine. Patrick Mahomes is going to be fine with his shares of ownership in the team. What was it, a $700 million deal over 10 years? This, like, trust me. The last thing you guys need to be doing is going to some locality and saying, hey, we need some of your tax dollars because there aren't enough luxury boxes built here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, the Patrick Mahomes contract, I think, was at least $500 million, which is considerably more than they're willing to donate to the refurbishment of their own stadium for the next few decades.
Now,
so,
admittedly, Mahomes maybe does more than the actual county does, but he's pretty darn good.
Yeah, so not falling for it. Good fans in Kansas City, from what I've heard there.
Just pass a bucket around Taylor's luxury box next time, and you'll have all the money you need for stadium refurbishment.
Exactly. These are some of the nicest fans in the league. Don't put them on the hook like this. And so their bluff has been called, I think. So hopefully they don't go anywhere. Another good news is that you can get fantastic deals at 4patriots.com/martini. Among the amazing things you can find there right now, the Deluxe 3-month survival food kits, which are back in stock after being sold out for more than a year. Now, the UN, and we know what we think of the UN, but it predicts that by 2030, there could be as many as 800 million people struggling to feed their families. Will that actually happen? We don't know, but as we say with everything with 4 Patriots, it's always great to be prepared. And so these 3-month survival food kits also come with exclusive and improving recipes, including pancakes, mac and cheese, chili, potato soup, spaghetti, and lasagna. Also, don't forget about good deals on the Leafy Greens Hydro Garden Seed Kit, the 4 Patriots Bountiful Green Plant Food, the Sauna Wrap Therapeutic Blanket, and the Solar Go Fridge with solar panel. You can stash away food and be confident that when a disaster strikes, you and your family will be ready. Go to 4patriots.com/martini to get the Deluxe 3-month survival food kit and the peace of mind that you deserve. Plus, get free shipping on orders over $97. That's the number 4patriots.com/martini. That's 4patriots.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our second good martini now, and it's kind of a double good martini. It's out of the state of Wisconsin, which had its primary yesterday. This is not about the presidential race there, although, of course, since Trump's the only candidate left in the race, he won handily and collected all the delegates for the convention. But there were 2 ballot measures we're going to talk about here. This is from The Hill, a ballot measure in Wisconsin that bars the use of private funds in administering elections was projected to pass on Tuesday and has passed. The ballot measure received about 54% support, with 98% of the vote reported as of Wednesday morning. The measure asked Wisconsinites if the state constitution should be amended to, quote, provide that private donations and grants may not be applied for accepted, expended, or used in connection with the conduct of any primary election or referendum. A separate ballot measure to amend the state constitution to note that only designated election officials can conduct elections was also projected to pass with close to 59% of the vote. So what's this all about? Well, the first ballot measure over private funding came against the backdrop of Republican backlash following Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan donating several $100 million to 2 groups that offered grants to local municipalities to conduct elections as they grappled with the COVID-19 pandemic during the 2020 election cycle. And obviously, there have been allegations ranging from mild to severe about what Zuckerberg may have been up to there. But Jim, the mere appearance of that much money in the process is certainly going to raise some eyebrows. So this is basically designed to make sure everything's on the up and up. Other states have done this. More than half the states, actually. 27 states prohibit, limit, or regulate the use of private or philanthropic funding to run elections. So Wisconsin is certainly not alone here. And so it's good, I think, in general, not to have this type of suspicion happening in our elections. But also, if your side doesn't win, it takes away that excuse come November. So that's good, too.
Yeah, look, even if everybody involved has the best of intentions, and I'm sure there are many listeners out there who doubt that, the idea, oh, wow, we're opening more polling places, we have more voting machines, we're able to hire more staffers for the day. A lot of people are volunteer, but you give them, I don't know if it's $5 an hour, some small amount just to cover expenses. Well, how are you able to do that? Oh, Mark Zuckerberg gave us the money to do that. The hairs on the back of your neck should go up. This is the sort of thing that is an utterly, I'm trying to think of anything more appropriate local expenditure than running elections. That, maybe protecting the public from threats to their lives and to their rights. But if that's 1A is having sufficient resources to properly administer elections, which means having enough polling places, having enough machines, testing the machines so you don't have any glitches on election day like they did in Arizona, and they lacks, the times we've seen, like, they ran out of printer paper, they ran out of ink, they ran out, like, you're supposed to do all that kind of stuff. Very often when people complain about extremely long lines for voting in various states, look, generally it's not like the state decides how many polling places are in a locality. The locality decides. So the obvious answer is to have more polling places, and that's not this is not brain surgery. This is not exceptionally difficult stuff. You just have to allocate the right resources for it. And while you and I, as discussed in that previous martini, we're generally very big supporters of low taxes. Your tax level should be enough to administer elections. This really should not be, that shouldn't be what you cut. And in my understanding, it's not that. It's a matter of a lot of these places, they just don't care. They have not. Nothing has been a sufficient reason for them to say, hey, we have 8 polling places in our locality. Maybe we need 10 or 12, and that would make the lines a little bit shorter. Also, let's keep in mind, you're going to have long lines in, say, a presidential year election. Your off-year elections, your non-November elections, your primaries, you're probably going to have much shorter lines. And the idea of maybe that's one of the reasons that you end up having lines only on certain times. So anyway, this is what local governments should be doing. This is really one of their primary responsibilities. And the idea of Mark Zuckerberg or any billionaire, you could, whether you don't like George Soros, you don't like some conservative billionaire, this is not the sort of thing billionaires should be coming along and paying for. This is a civic duty. This is one thing this is a primary responsibility of government. And so the idea of, even if the most kind-hearted, beloved billionaire in the world wants to pay for this stuff, this is a job for the taxpayers. This is a job for the local stuff. And just having all of this underwritten by a individual billionaire or wealthy person or institution, non-government institution, just arouses too much suspicions and is a very bad idea.
No, that's exactly right. And when that billionaire tends to have political persuasions, it raises distrust all the more. And Zuckerberg certainly has not been quiet about some of that stuff. So good for the people of Wisconsin and those other states. Hopefully that makes things go smoother, and everyone agrees they're happening on the up and up come November. Even more good news. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the U.S. with more than 10,000 different kinds of plants and more than 2 million happy customers here in the United States? That's because you too can grow lemon, avocado, olive, or fig trees inside your own home on top of the wide variety of houseplants they have available.
Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to order online, and your plants will be shipped directly to your door in just 1 or 2 days. And along with their 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, Fast Growing Trees offers free plant consultation forever.
We love our fast-growing trees. We've talked about the oregano and the basil a lot the last few days, but we still love our regular plants, the monstera and the fig tree. Love them, love them, love them. Fast-Growing Trees has the best deals online, up to half off on select plants, and listeners to the 3 Martini Lunch get an additional 15% off their first purchase when using the code Martini at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code Martini at checkout. fastgrowingtrees.com, code Martini. The offer is valid for a limited time, and tell them that we sent you. All right, Jim, on to our bad/crazy martini now. And you might remember that not long after Joe Biden took office, not only did the numbers at the border instantly soar, but the numbers at your gas pump did as well. At one point, I paid slightly north of $5 a gallon for gas in Northern Virginia. Certainly, it's been north of $3 almost instantly since he took office. In some parts of the country, it's been north of $4. And if you're in California, the numbers there are just worse than anywhere else. But the strategy of President Biden, and it may have helped a little bit in the midterm elections, was to sell off petroleum in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve in 2022 to bring those numbers down. And it worked to a certain extent, but the numbers are still, at least in our area, about $3.50 a gallon where I live, and that's way, way higher than they were prior to Biden taking office. But Biden made a promise, and we know what his promises are good for. Here he is in 2022 explaining, yeah, we're selling all this stuff, but don't worry, we'll fill it back up.
Today, I'm announcing a plan to refill the Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve in the years ahead at a profit for taxpayers. The United States government's going to purchase oil to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
Sure you will. Well, here's Jeff Flock over at Fox Business today saying, you know what, those oil prices are so high, the administration's decided, never mind.
today, the Biden administration announced that it's going to pull back its plans to refill the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. You know, they drained that to try and bring gas prices down earlier. Well, they've been trying to fill it back up, but now it is way too expensive. So they say we hit $86 today on the futures market. They say it costs too much, so we're not going to do it. And now is the time of huge geopolitical risk out there. So I don't know. This summer could be a tough summer if you want to drive somewhere.
Well, and voters will remember that, too, come November. But, Jim, I know you're shocked. You're looking around for your shocked face there that Biden made this promise to refill it and to at a profit, no less. And no, not going to happen.
Yeah. Biden, overpromising, underdelivering. That's so unlike him. Before we kind of dive into this angle, I just want to observe, so we, recently drove back from Hilton Head to Fairfax County, filling up the tank. It's a long drive, and we're coming out of the time of year where gas prices are traditionally lower. It's not as we get into spring, you get to the summer driving season. That's usually when prices go up. Oh, by the way, somewhere in there you go transfer from the winter blend to the summer blend, and they have to retool the refineries, and usually see prices spike up there. Filled up for about $3.25, and I checked while you were looking, it's all around Fairfax County. It's around $3.20. $3.25 is not cheap, particularly if your idea of normal prices is between $2 and $3 a gallon. So we did get below $3 a gallon. I want to say around Christmas, right around the middle of winter, but not much. We're looking at $2.98, $2.90, something around there. So prices, gas has never been cheap in the Biden years. And the floor of the usual annual cycle has been fairly high. We're heading into an spring, summer driving season. Demand will go up. My guess is you're going to see it go well through the 3 points and probably, get in the neighborhood of the high $3.50 to $4 range heading into summer. And people are going to be really irked about this. Now, why are they irked? Well, a whole bunch of bad administration policies, including not expanding refinery capacity. Look, I'm all for drill, baby, drill. I'm all for developing more oil fields. That's great. But if you think you put that directly into your car, your thinking is crude. Your thinking lacks refinement, as does the product. And we have not built an oil refinery in this country in a generation. They've expanded existing refineries, but it's very tough to get the approval to do that because you got to go through a whole bunch of environmental hoops. And several large refineries shut down over the last couple of years. So we just have less. I think it's a funnel, right? There's just less coming through the pipeline to get out to go to all of the gas stations across the country. Are the number of electric cars on the road increasing? Yeah, but that's, we're starting from a very small amount, increasing to a slightly larger than amount. Still a lot of hybrids on the road. They still need gas. So gas prices are definitely still going up. And why were we releasing it earlier? Well, it wasn't that the Middle East was at war then. We were at a situation of just gas prices were high because of this, and the administration released money from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve as a political maneuver, as an effort to get people to stop being angry at Biden. Boy, that worked wonders. His numbers are still lousy. And I will just also point out, look, the Middle East is at war now. There is this ongoing serious fight between Israel and Hamas, continual harassment from Hezbollah, Iran's fingerprints, shooting at ships in the Red Sea. All kinds of things are driving oil prices higher. I would also point out that something I'm generally supportive of. I'm generally supportive of Ukraine wanting to kill Russians any way they can. They've also been using drone strikes against Russian oil refineries. Now, I've got no problem with this, having been in a city where they've sent a bunch of Russian missiles at this. You guys got to shoot back. You shoot back anywhere you want. The Biden administration's policy is no, don't do that. Don't do that because that's going to increase oil prices, and that's going to be bad for our reelection bid. The Ukrainians, as far as I understand, are like, oh, you want us to stop doing that? So, yeah, sorry, you're just not that important to it. We'll get right on that. Apparently, the Biden administration's policy is like, look, we want you to beat Russia, but don't do it in a way where Putin will feel humiliated. We want you to defeat Russia on the battlefield, but figure out some way where Putin feels good about the whole thing. And guess what? That's not really possible. So that's another factor that I suspect. There's no indication Ukraine's going to stop doing this, and it looks like they have some pretty decent amount of success with this. And this is driving oil prices higher and gas prices higher in Russia, and it makes it harder for Russia to resupply stuff to the front lines. They're going to keep doing this. And, I don't think this is the major factor in world oil prices. It'll be another, contributing factor. Oil prices are going to go up. It's going to be bad news for the Biden administration as Biden seeks re-election. That promise of, trust us, we're totally going to, this is when you'd really like to have a lot of oil in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Boy, Greg, who could have possibly foreseen that this was not going to work out very well in the long run?
Us. We said it at the time, of course. The comments.
Most of our listeners,
yes.
Anybody with functioning brain cells, yes.
Right. The one comment was, well, at least they can't manipulate the price again heading into election if they do that without filling it back up again. But who knows?
He'll tap into the Strategic Olive Oil Reserve or something.
That's right. Hey, remember the simple old days of the Gulf War when Saddam invaded Kuwait and the prices of gas jumped from like $1 to like $1.75 and we were spitting mad? Because percentage-wise, that's a massive jump, but simpler times.
Greg, many people have told me that their very favorite scene in the film that you and I consider to be the cornerstone of Western civilization, Die Hard, is the scene where they pass a gas station and the gas price is like 85 cents a gallon.
74 and 77. Yeah, when Al's walking out of the mini mart and looks up at Nakatomi Plaza, there's a gas station right there where he's buying his Twinkies.
We were once a great country. We were.
And
we were once a proper country.
I don't know if I've shown that scene to my kids or not, but the thing to remember there is that regular was not regular unleaded. It was just regular back then, and then there was also unleaded. So the things the kids don't understand these days, like not needing a remote back in the day. You were the remote to go change the channel and stuff like that for your parents. So anyway, let's hope the numbers don't get too high at the gas pump this year, but that's not looking good. And once again, the administration welching on a promise. Jim, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. Thanks so much for being with us. Please subscribe to the podcast. If you don't already, tell some friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch Podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Wednesday and join us again on Thursday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.